Welcome to yet another episode of Eat, Drink, Art, a podcast series where we interview creative personalities from Malaysia, Asia, and the world. With me today is Diong Lian, the co-founder of Gardner and Wife Theatre, a theatre company for kids based in Malaysia. In this episode, you will learn how Gardner and Wife Theatre was formed and how they're making lots of children happy through theatre, dance, and musicals, and how you, as an artist, can hopefully do the same in your country. Lian, thank you so much for your time. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
I'm super excited to be talking to you today, Lian. Thank you so much again, for your time. Let's start at the beginning, Lian. I'm really interested to know how did you first got started with theatre? Perhaps we can start there.
My earliest memory of performing was actually in primary school, where they had some kind of a sort of end of year concert.
Okay.
And so I was sort of me and another girl were, and it was one of these like United Nations kind of presentation. So they had all of us in different costumes from different countries. And so, me and another girl were like from China. So that was sort of my earliest memory of performing. And I remember, I think I said something obviously quite funny because the audience laughed. And that was my earliest memory of enjoying myself on stage. That was, yeah. So that was, I suppose, my first introduction to the theatre. And then later on in towards like standard 5 or 6, there was a lady called Mrs. Pansy Ratichandran,
Okay.
who was one of the sort of major choral teachers in the country. And she came to my school and she organized like a huge choir to sing for the sultans, at that time, the sultans like Jubilee. And I remember, learning how to sing as part of a group. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I particularly enjoyed singing with my friends and meeting new people, because this choir was not just my school, but she roped in a few other schools as well. So when we had rehearsals, it was like 2 or 3 schools together. It was really huge, and it was a really big production. But of course, at that age, you don't realize, it's only when you're older, you look back and you go, wow, that was like several hundred young people, she had to control, and she did it. And I've always remembered her, just the way she made singing so enjoyable. And it was it was a very communal kind of experience. And I really enjoyed that. So that was, those were sort of my formative years of performing, and I really enjoyed it. And it, I suppose then after that, when I went to secondary school, I was doing a lot of, I found, sort of common, friends who also enjoyed the theatre. So they were, I had a friend who loved writing. So she would write scripts, and, a bunch of us would love acting. So that was sort of how we started, in school, really. School was the breeding ground for, my love for literature, poetry, drama, all that.
Just out of curiosity, Lian, which school did you study in?
I went to Asunta Secondary.
Oh,
Asunta Primary and Asunta Secondary. Yeah. And so my principal at that time was Sister Enda.
Okay.
Who was also a huge sort of, she was also known as the singing nun when she was alive. So she loved singing. She was an Irish nun, and she loved singing, and she really shared with us and inspired all of us actually to sing as well. Not just choir stuff, but also solo singing and stuff like that. So I suppose in a way, and she always encouraged, performing arts and things like that. So we got a lot of encouragement to stage our own productions. Of course, some people would take the opportunity to basically skip class lah, right? Which I think is quite common. But at least, we weren't taking drugs or anything like that. We were, learning how to project our voices, and we were in school and rehearsing. And I think that is, that sort of, I think, is what's missing nowadays. I think for a lot of people who go to government schools, I think those opportunities to do things which are not academic are actually becoming, I've realized, becoming quite rare, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Chilean, because performing arts really does help a lot of individuals cultivate confidence. I'm curious because you started out in school,
Yeah.
dabbling in performing arts, script writing. You also had, you sort of like a small team as well. You
Yeah.
mentioned you had a friend who was writing scripts. Probably someone was directing you guys. How did this affect you as a person? I mean, like dabbling in performing arts at such a young age. How did this, made you as a person today?
I think it gave me the inspiration to think outside the box.
Ah,
It made me realize that, there were a lot of things you could do. You weren't sort of, or at least I didn't feel that I was restricted to, becoming an accountant or, I wasn't in the science stream, I was in the arts stream. So usually in the arts, people expect you to either take up English or law, and at that age, I remember thinking, I'm not sure I wanted to do a sort of formal kind of job, just a normal job. I wanted to try and explore the world and see it and not have to make decisions at that age, And I suppose today, I think we would say that, what I really wanted was a gap year, but at that time, this concept of a gap year, I think, was quite alien in Malaysia.
yes. Yeah.
But I knew that I didn't want to lose the opportunity if the opportunity presented itself. So when I was in, so I didn't really know what to do after Form 5. So I decided to just enroll in Form 6. So I did Form 6. And towards the end of Form 6, actually, a drama school opened up in Singapore. And it was called the LaSalle College of the Arts, which exists today. And at that time, the college was primarily focused on things like visual arts. So up till now, actually, LaSalle is known as primarily a visual arts college. But they were given a mandate by the Singapore government to start to do something with the performing arts. So they offered basically a diploma in drama. And they put so the principal of the college was a British guy. So he put an ad in the paper. And I remember just looking at this ad going is this real? Can I actually study drama and not have to travel all the way to the UK or the US? Maybe I can just go to Singapore, And so that got my, sort of my brain going. And I was like, I wonder what I need to do. So that, basically the principal was, very, it was like his first time running a drama school as well. So everybody was like, the blind leading the blind a bit. But he came up to KL and basically auditioned me. And then he accepted me. And then I after Form 6, I went down to Singapore and enrolled at the LaSalle College of the Arts.
Which year was this?
Yeah.
Which year was this, Chilean?
Oh, this was in 1991.
Okay.
And it was a real I think, because they weren't really sure whether there was any career prospects in the performing arts, even in Singapore at that time. Although actually even then you could see that now that when I look back, you realize that the Singapore government was already laying the foundations for basically creating an ecosystem for the performing arts there. So one of the reasons they were pushing, colleges like LaSalle to set up a performing arts division was that they could foresee that, in 20 years' time, they will need the talent to be, writing TV dramas, writing plays. In other words, if you wanted to be sort of considered, a progressive first world country, you've got to have basically a decent cultural scene. And so they were already setting up the foundations of that. So this course, I suppose, because they weren't really sure what was going to happen and whether they could find enough students to enroll, it was a fairly kind of like a fairly general performing arts program. So we did a little bit of everything. We did a little bit of drama. We did a little bit of dance. We had I had classmates who came from Chinese opera backgrounds. I had classmates who came from who originally wanted to be like pop singers, and things like that. So everyone came with all kinds of experiences or lack of experiences as well. So it was a fairly eclectic group, and that kind of made it a very interesting mix of classmates, and that was a really an amazing time for me, and I really enjoyed the experience.
And how long was this course?
So the course was structured to be so there were sort of two phases. The first phase was you got, I think, if you only did 1 year, you'd get a certificate.
I see.
And then if you did 2 years, you'd get a diploma. And then they also did one of these, what do you call that, twinning programs kind of thing with a university in the UK. And if you did that one, so your final year, you would actually do it in the UK. That one will give you a degree.
So which one did you take?
So I originally was planning to go there, but in the end, actually, I ended up leaving. So what happened was we also had a range of instructors. And one of these instructors was somebody who came from America. And this teacher worked very closely with a university in the US called Carnegie Mellon, which is known as the first degree awarding performing arts conservatory in the US. So she was a graduate from there, but she also taught their summer programs where they bring in, prospective students to come in and do like a theater camp. And then with the hopes that those who are good enough will then audition and enroll for the undergraduate bachelor's degree. So when she came to teach at LaSalle I think it was for 1 term, she basically said to all of us, she said, if you ever want to audition for this school, and if you get the chance to come over to the US and audition, I will try and arrange for an audition for you. And then if you get in, that would be great, because it's one of the top drama schools in America. So after about 1.5 years, I decided to basically do that. So I kind of, I got in touch with a summer theater in the US, and they were looking for sort of, I guess basically they call it intern lah, but I guess it's synonymous with slavery, right? So you didn't get paid very much, and you were sort of almost like a volunteer, but they provided housing.
I see.
So I basically did my summer stint with them, and during my time there, I took the opportunity, obviously, to travel down to this university and audition for them. So from there, I got accepted, and then I basically spent 4 years taking a degree in performing arts in theater. So that's how it happened. So Singapore was a sort of like a springboard, for me to look at theater as something as a career, and to formalize my interest in this area of study. Yeah.
Right. And I'm just curious, Chae, because this was during the 90s, and people's perception about the arts, I'm guessing was pretty negative as well, because everyone wants the best for their children.
Yeah.
How did
it was seen as something quite frivolous, not something you could have a career in. But I was very lucky because I had parents who, for the most part, had this attitude that actually at the end of the day, we just want you to have a degree. So we just want you to have the, I guess, academic qualifications to then do whatever, with at least a basic degree in something, you can probably apply for a job in almost any field.
Okay.
And so they weren't too fussed about, whether I was studying something normal or something unusual. Because at the end of the day, they said, we just want you to have a degree so that covers your, basic, you can, if you decide you don't want to do the performing arts anymore, you can still do other things if you can show that you've got a bachelor's degree. So
Right.
I was lucky in that sense. They didn't have any sort of like expectation that I would become a lawyer or an accountant or anything like that. Yeah.
I like the fact that they actually were very understanding, to let you do what you felt compelled to do. And you eventually went on to actually create Gardner and Wife Theatre. How did that come about?
So that was also quite strange. In the sense that one of the things I realized after the fact, of course, is that in the show business industry, very often, like the university I went to, they teach you all about the show, but not very much about the business. And one of the things I became aware, I think towards my last year, that means my senior year, was I said to my teachers, I said, I think it's great that we, study Stanislavski and do all this, learning how to stage our own solo shows and all that. But how do we, file our taxes? Maybe it's the Chinese in me or what, but I said, I feel like we should know how to do basic things like how do you file taxes? What can you deduct? Because we're all artists.
Yes.
So my teachers actually, bless them, they actually got somebody in to give us, I think it was like a 3-session sort of briefing on, how, when you go out in the real world and you start earning money, what you should file, what should be deducted, what you can claim as an artist and how you should do that. So they did do that, and all that, but it was only because we asked for it. So it wasn't something which I think they thought needed to be taught. Maybe because they didn't, I think maybe up to that point, they had students who came from relatively privileged backgrounds. And so maybe their parents did all that for them. I don't know. But it was certainly something, I think that my year was the first time they introduced they gave us that opportunity to sort of learn what it was like to live in the real world. So anyway, when I came back to Malaysia, I didn't actually have any plans to set up a theatre company. I just wanted to act, basically. And so I got into some television programs as an actor. But I also started working with the Instant Cafe Theatre.
I see.
And that was a real eye-opener because, they were trying their best to make what they did be a viable source of revenue for the performers. And so it was set up as a Sendirian Berhad. So it was set up as a business to try and make sure that all of us could earn a living as well. And so it got me thinking, what I wanted to do in the long run. And I always had this idea that I wanted to set up my own theatre company. Of course, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So when I met my husband, he had sort of left the theatre. He was now doing sort of events and trying to get into film and stuff like that. But his background obviously was theatre. So eventually we thought, okay, we'll give it a shot. Let's try and do stuff. Let's think of something we can do which doesn't exist in the landscape.
Right.
And so we realized that comedy was a genre which really was limited to just Instant Cafe. There weren't really other companies at that time which were focused on comedy as their focus.
Right.
Yeah. So we decided to try and do comedy as a way to attract people to try coming to the theatre. So it was really more of a strategy to try and get people to attend a show.
Right.
And so in a way that has, since that beginning, it has kind of morphed into, okay, let's maybe try and get children to come and see shows so that may develop them into theatre goers when they grow up as well.
Interesting.
So that's kind of, I suppose, the genesis of how our interest in children's theatre started, was because we were trying to think of how do you get people who don't go to the theatre to just come
To the theatre.
Yeah. And we realized with adults it's a bit difficult because in the entertainment landscape there's so many distractions, right?
Yes.
You've got concerts, you've got restaurants, you've got television, you've got the cinema, and nowadays you've got
Smartphones.
smartphones, so people are watching Netflix and things like that. So you have a lot of choices, but it makes it that much more challenging for those of us in the performing arts to get you to say, okay, open your wallet and pay for a ticket and then come and spend an hour and a half or 3 hours in this auditorium. That's a challenge. So we realized that once we started to experiment to bring in shows for children, we realized actually children's theatre was an area which was kind of not being serviced. And we also, felt that, the more I read up on, the importance of children's theatre, the more it dawned on me that actually if we can get them started young, and I look back at my own life, just being able to have that pleasure, I suppose, in performing and being part of this strange universe of make-believe is really, I think, a very important step towards developing theatre goers for the future.
So, Chilean, you founded Gardner and Wife with your husband Richard Gardner.
Yeah.
This was in the year 2000, right? Somewhere around there.
The Y2K bug. We were all worried about that. I remember everyone thought, everything's going to stop working. The clocks are going to stop. Computer cannot start.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So we established the company in August that year.
Okay.
And then we started. Actually, our first show was produced under Actor Studio when Actor Studio was still at Dataran Merdeka. And what Richard did was he adapted a play by a playwright called Brandon Thomas, who basically it was the predecessor to The Importance of Being Earnest. So Brandon Thomas wrote a play called Charlie's Aunt. And if you look at the history of Charlie's Aunt, it was Oscar Wilde sort of developed it further and then presented The Importance of Being Earnest. So we decided to take Brandon Thomas' version in order to give us the freedom to kind of, because it was basically out of copyright. So we were able to take that play and sort of localize it. And, so we staged it at Dataran Merdeka. So, and it was very, very well received. So we decided, okay, let's try and see, challenge ourselves to do, more, sort of local cast productions.
Right.
So that's how we started. Yeah.
And Chilean, how then did y'all decided to go into children's theatre? Do you remember that specific time or the moment when, your team decided, okay, yeah, I think children's theatre is the one that we're going to now focus on?
So what happened was our next show, after we did the Charlie's Auntie, was a play by Alan Ayckbourn. And it was called Relatively Speaking. We thought it was a great production. I really enjoyed watching rehearsals and all that. But nobody came to the show.
Oh, why is that?
At that time, we didn't know. We thought, oh, maybe the publicity person we got wasn't very good, or whatever. But actually she got us quite a lot of publicity. And so, we were sort of like, oh, I wonder why, why it doesn't really ring with the audience, and the audience, when after they it was a comedy, so people would laugh, but when they came out of the show at the end, it wasn't a play which they would then quickly call up their friends and say, hey, you better go and see the show. So it wasn't a must see. So that was that sort of taught us a little bit about how much more we needed to understand marketing, arts, and how do you position a play. Then our next project after that was a musical called Nonsense. And that one did really well. So we thought, oh, maybe what we should do is more musicals, And so over the next 2 years, we experimented with different types of comedies, plays to musicals. We brought in musicals, and we had, I suppose, ups and downs. So a lot of shows did really badly. Some of them were terrible. I mean, in terms of the financials, we couldn't get enough people to attend the shows. Some shows did pretty well. And eventually we kind of burned through whatever savings we had. And we simply could not stage any more shows, at least not with our own money.
Right.
So we then decided, okay, this is you could feel that we were kind of burning out, we were sort of like, okay, this is the theater is supposed to be fun, but it's becoming quite depressing. So a friend of mine in Singapore, an ex-classmate of mine, she invited us to go down to Singapore and coach theater. So by that time, this was in 2003, I think 2003, I think.
Right.
The ecosystem in Singapore had developed to the point that the government had organized these arts festivals geared for secondary school and junior colleges.
Right.
So they would this particular event was called the Singapore Youth Festival. But it really wasn't much of a festival. It was really more of a competition. So they would have categories like orchestra, a category for dance, drama. And so you would have to basically perform, and then there would be these judges which will judge you or judge your school. And then they will decide whether how many points you get. And then the points would win you medals. So there'd be a gold medal, there'd be a silver medal, bronze medal, and then of course some kind of general recognition for participation. So obviously, they had this whole infrastructure basically to create work for people in the industry. So as performers, many of us complain not enough work which pays, right?
Yes.
This was a way for the government to try and put money in the pockets of theatre practitioners by saying, okay, why don't you coach these school groups? Come to schools, and the schools would gain, obviously they would have some level of budget freedom to be able to hire these external coaches. And the incentive for participating in these kinds of competitions was that it would gain the school greater autonomy in the scheme of the education system. So it was a way to incentivize schools. So one way to incentivize schools to participate is to say that, if you do well or you participate all the time, the Ministry of Education there would allocate either more funding, or they would say this funding is with no strings attached. So the principal feels that, okay, I can decide how we're going to spend the money and things like that. Otherwise, of course, just like in Malaysia, very often the principal's hands are tied as to what they can spend money on, or if they want to fix certain things, maybe they have to bring in outside sponsors and things like that. So there was a real need actually for drama coaches in Singapore at that time. So we decided to go down. Lo and behold, I think about a month or two into this, into our coaching, life, SARS hit. And so suddenly we were like, okay, do we go back to KL where we don't know what we can do? Or do we stay in Singapore and hope that this SARS thing will just fizzle out? And so anyway, despite the fact that there was this, I guess, sort of pandemic going on, the children were still going to school. They
Right.
didn't shut the schools down because they had figured out that basically everybody just had to take the temperatures twice a day. And that was it. So it wasn't like COVID, like COVID was a real mystery when it first came onto the scene. SARS figured out very quickly, okay, it's all about whether or not you have a fever. So the kids still went to school, and then at certain times of the day, a bell would go off, and then all the kids would pull out their thermometers and their little notebooks, and they would all take their temperatures. So basically life still carried on.
Right.
And so that meant that we could still go to school and coach. So we decided, okay, SARS or no SARS, I think it's better that we stay on in Singapore because at least there was work. So we stayed on. Eventually, of course, SARS finished. And then we decided we were kind of like tired of teaching, and we decided, okay, let's see what's happening in KL. And so we decided to come back, and it was kind of, I don't know, we were trying to figure out what kind of shows we could bring in which were affordable for us, given the fact that we had sort of burned through our money the previous year. And Richard came across I think we were looking through like what they were offering in Edinburgh. So the Edinburgh Festival would always have these, very interesting, eclectic mix of performances. So he found this guy who billed himself as the world's first stand-up comedian for kids.
Interesting.
And so we thought, oh, maybe one guy can afford So Richard wrote to his manager, obviously, and he said, would he be interested to fly down to KL? Ironically or miraculously, the manager said, oh, actually, we've been trying to find a way for him to travel to the Adelaide Festival.
I see.
So at that time, also, we were very lucky because Malaysia Airlines at that point was still doing things like sponsoring events and stuff like that. So we basically wrote to Malaysia Airlines and said, hey, could you sponsor one ticket? And they thought, okay, one ticket, okay, can. So luckily, we had the sponsorship of Malaysia Airlines. So we had the flights sorted. So all we had to do was then sort out hotel, accommodation and the theatre rental. So that was sort of our first foray into doing something where, our audience was made up primarily of mums and children under 10. And it was an overwhelming success. We were quite amazed at, the response, particularly the response from the expat community.
Right.
And so that was our first, introduction to this demographic, which was basically the expat parents.
Right.
So that's how we ended up. So then after, that finished, we started to look at other children-centric performers. And eventually we discovered sort of a very small but steady group of theatre companies in the UK, which specialized in staging adaptations of picture books. So that's pretty much the niche we go for nowadays. Yeah.
Right. And it's very interesting that it took quite some time, right, Chae, for Gardner and wife to actually figure out what actually worked for your team. I'm guessing this took you all about 4 to 5 years, around there.
Yeah, you're right. About 5. I think about 5 or 6 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It
I
takes
really
a while.
really admire your resilience and patience. Seriously, it's not easy. So
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah.
So, Chilean, I'm pretty sure after that, because you have been doing like you've been bringing in international productions, especially designed for children.
Yeah.
What has been some of the some of the feedback that parents have given you, especially when it comes to, how these productions have sort of benefited their children? What is a common, feedback that you've received from the parents?
I think what they like is the relatability.
Mm,
It's for a lot of parents and a lot of teachers as well. They said it's nice to watch something in which you see the children enjoying themselves. It's not something which is, actually for adults and they just have to sit there and tolerate.
Right.
The show is actually catered to their level of thinking and their level of experience. And so one of the things I'm very sort of wary of is this idea that many people have, that because it's children's theatre, it doesn't need to be very good. And that is something which I am quite determined to try and change. In fact, one of the sort of stumbling blocks, or one of the initial reactions, I think, when we started bringing in shows for children, was people said, why the ticket price so expensive? Or they would say, but I'm coming with a child. How much is the child's ticket? And then we say, actually, they're all the same. Because actually the show is for the child. It's just that we're giving you the discount because you're coming with the child,
Right.
but the target is not you. The target is actually your child. So the show is aimed at children. So it's changing that perception has been a sort of a work in progress, until we have a situation where children are viewed as individuals and are entitled really to the same level of professionalism and quality, world-class quality of shows. I think it's very hard to get out of that mentality that, if it's for children, you can sort of bluff them and just put something, haphazard or, not very good. Yeah.
So I really like the fact that your team has been really working very hard to bring in actual professional theater performers who are specifically for children. And it's like you said, it's not haphazard. It's not like tidak apa, like just simply just
or patronizing. I think a lot of children's theater is perceived to be patronizing to the children because we think somehow they're stupid.
Yeah. Or they're just kids. They should be, they should be able to enjoy this performance or something.
Yes,
kind of being said, right?
Or you just bring out a clown who does balloons and that's enough. And actually, I mean, one of the things I've learned actually is that children, for the most part, are actually afraid of clowns because they look very bizarre. They've got painting on their faces, and and if you actually look at the history of clowning, actually it's not meant for children.
Yes, correct.
But I mean, I think clowns are actually quite scary for children who've never seen anything like that. It can be very, very scary.
So, Chae, I'm also curious to know, right? Because you have experience, bringing in productions for children and everything, and I'm pretty sure that initially you were still figuring things out. Like I'm pretty sure that initially probably you didn't know that clowns were scary to children, right? And how did you sort of navigate this kind of hurdles? Like how did you learn over the years?
Actually, the companies we brought in, the UK companies we brought in, were instrumental actually to educating us on the idea that children can actually be discerning in their appreciation of performing arts, but you have to respect where they're coming from. And in fact, it was actually because of these theatre companies that we also started to explore the idea of providing relaxed performances. So these are performances where you acknowledge that perhaps some of the children are on the autism spectrum. They may have certain disorders, like they can't handle loud noises or sudden darkness. or they may just never have been to the theater before. So once the lights go out, it scares them,
Yeah.
So the idea of the relaxed performances originally was to make it feel more casual. And so the house lights are actually on, not full, but maybe at like half or 1/3. And then the sound effects on stage is reduced, so it's not as loud. And in some performances in other countries, sometimes the performers even come out and do a synopsis of the play before they start performing it, so that
Oh,
the kids who don't like surprises understand, okay, this is what's going to happen, right? So when they actually watch the actual scenes, they don't get shocked by, oh my god, how why did that character suddenly pop up, and things like that.
mm,
So the idea is to basically tell the children that this is all make believe, but you can still enjoy yourself. And in a relaxed performance also, they sometimes call them shush free performances, so you don't tell the child that they have to keep quiet.
I see.
They can talk, they can ask questions, to their parents or the carers, and they can talk loudly if they want to and ask, why is that person doing that? And so, so it's a way for children to sort of get into watching the theater without being burdened by the rules of etiquette.
I see.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Chilean, because this brings me to my next question, right? So when it comes to all of these collaborations, like you mentioned, that it's a shush free performance and all that. I'm curious when it comes to because you have a lot of collaborations with overseas
Yeah.
productions, right? What are some of the criterias that you usually look out for, especially when it comes to all of these collaborations? And the reason why I ask is because we have readers from abroad who are in the performing arts as well, and
Okay.
maybe some of them might be interested in collaborating with you. So what is some of the things that you look out for?
Well, because we have very limited sort of manpower, we have to be, I mean, just to clarify, we've actually experimented with bringing in different types of shows for children over the years. And we have discovered that probably the easiest actually to market are shows which are adaptations of picture books.
I see.
We have tried bringing in like non-storybook shows, but we find that the marketing those shows are usually quite challenging, because ultimately the schools have to justify going to the parents and saying, "Oh, we'd like you to pay, X amount, so that we can bring your child to go and see this show." So if it doesn't appear to have sort of educational qualities, it becomes a much harder sell for the school teachers, So that's what we've discovered. It would be great, of course, if there was, if I could establish like my own children's theater, and then we can have a real range of different types of shows. Then we don't have to be limited to just the ones which are profitable. We can start to look at stuff like storytelling, maybe theater, which is slightly more unusual, the kind you get in, say, a fringe festival, that kind of thing. So, I mean, ultimately, I suppose it's really about getting the children. Actually, no, sorry, it's getting the parents of the children to bring them to the theater. That's the challenge.
Right.
And
And how
yeah.
and how did you figure out a way to overcome this, or is it still a work in progress? Especially bringing children to the theater.
Our formula is we target basically children who are under the age of 10.
Okay.
Because once they hit 10 and above, they start to have other activities.
Mm.
They start to have exams. They start to maybe do things with their friends. They start to leave the house on their own to do their own thing. So it becomes more and more difficult for the parents to make the decision, okay, let's go to the theater. If you have a teenager, and the parent says, "Oh, let's go to the theater," the teenager may say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got something else on," or I want to do gaming, or I want to go and see some other thing, and it's almost like you have less and less control over the child, and so it becomes much more challenging to make the decision to come to the theater as opposed to doing something else. Yeah. So I know it's a very, how do you say, very cold and calculated way of looking at marketing the arts. But, in Malaysia anyway, I mean, this doesn't apply to all societies. I mean, just for us in the Klang Valley,
Yeah.
This is the sort of the challenges you face in terms of marketing the performing arts to certain demographics.
Right.
And because parents tend to look at performing arts as something which must have some kind of educational quality about it, then even the performing arts we present need to have that educational tinge to it. It can't be too fun, or at least it shouldn't be fun without any educational quality.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, Chilean, because you've been, doing this for over 20 years, do you have any children who probably watch a production and then
Gosh,
later
yes.
became performing arts people itself? Do you have those kind of stories?
Actually, I had one of our students from the time we were coaching in Singapore ended up becoming like a television host.
Oh,
He
nice.
does a lot of acting, and he's busy. He is, one of the top sort of, I guess, entertainers, television entertainers in Singapore. And he actually, when we, met, sort of got in touch with him many years later. He said, "Thank you so much for what you did with us in school, because that made me have the confidence to explore performing arts as a career." So, I mean, of course, when we meet him, he's now like a father, of a child, and you're like, oh my gosh, that we're really, really old, because when we knew him, he was like, 14 or 15 years old.
Right.
And now he's, in his 30s.
Wow. Now he's a established performer himself.
Exactly. Yeah. So, when I look at him now, I'm like, wow, I guess I mean, we always worry that, you change people's lives for the worst. But obviously in this case, it worked out for him, but I mean, one of the things in Malaysia, especially, is we are always wary of being asked to do things like, talk at career fairs, because, we don't believe that we should actually encourage people to go into the performing arts in Malaysia, because it is a very volatile industry.
Right.
It is not a safe career. And, you really have to want to do it to really justify going into it.
Yes.
And if you have a choice to do other things, please try those first.
At the same time, the performing arts is also, how to say, some of the skills that you learn from the performing arts, especially when it comes to voice projection.
Yes.
Feeling comfortable on stage also helps in one's career as well. Right?
Yes. I mean, I think it's very important to. That's why I'm more interested in providing drama and theater for children, because they are not in danger of having this illusion that, oh, now I can do this as a career, because they're still at the age where they don't really know what they want. But I think it's very dangerous when you coach teenagers, because then they start to think, oh, I can do this forever, and then you go, okay, maybe that might not please, or you may not be good enough, or it's going to take a lot more to make it on the big stage. It's very difficult. You have a lot more competition. So teenagers, it's always tricky because you don't want them to take it the wrong way. Children, I think, are a lot easier to not build what do you call that, expectations which are unrealistic.
Does Gardner and Wife Theatre also provide workshops, Chilean? Like, just out of curiosity, like I'm pretty sure some of our listeners who are parents, they probably have this question in mind.
We don't, only because there are already quite a lot of speech and drama and other academies out there which provide, dance and things like that. So we don't feel that we want to compete
I see.
in what is actually a fairly crowded field.
Mm.
I always joke that that Puchong is actually the arts capital of Malaysia because of the sheer numbers of music schools and dance schools and art schools and all these arts tuition centers. They're everywhere in Puchong. But I don't think the parents who send their children to these classes actually imagine that they will want to do it professionally.
Right.
It's really more about learning the skills which come with the performing arts. The idea of self-reflection, the idea of working in a group, speaking confidently, that kind of thing. Those are the skills I think which you can carry with you regardless of whether you go into the performing arts ultimately.
Yeah. I think that's one the wonderful thing about performing arts, like the fact that you can actually bring in all the skills into your life.
Yeah.
So Gardner and Wife is mostly just focused currently on bringing in international productions.
Yes.
And the upcoming performance is going to be Stuck, which is the poster right behind you.
Yes, exactly.
And could you share a little bit more about Stuck, Chae, and what is it about, and also who is it for?
So, Stuck is a picture book, actually originally written by a very prolific illustrator, writer called Oliver Jeffers. So he is quite a prolific writer of children's books. And this book, I think, was written maybe about maybe almost 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And this UK company called Big Wooden Horse basically got the rights to adapt it for the stage. And what is nice about it is that the structure of the play is sort of like a play within a play. So there's a character called a mother who is not in the book, but is part of the story in terms of helping to tell the boy's story. So the basic plot is basically that this boy has a kite stuck in a tree. So in order to get the kite down, he decides to throw things at the tree to try and shake. And, but of course he throws all kinds of things. And so the story gets more and more absurd. At one point he throws a ship at it, he throws a whale at it, he throws many things, but everything just gets stuck in the tree instead of actually falling off. And so eventually, of course, a solution is found, and you'll see it in the play. But it's a wonderful story for children's imaginations and, how things can escalate because you don't address the underlying problem, So it's a lovely, lovely book. The illustrations are fantastic. And this particular production, the set design is extremely simple. So it looks very much like the book. It's not too convoluted. And the songs in the show are a lot of fun. They're really easy to sing along as well. And it's one of our sort of best-selling productions. So we brought this show in now like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And before the pandemic, we actually did a version, or we had local actors do the same show. One of them, so it's a 2-person play. In our Malaysian version, we had Aaron Teo play the little boy, and Aaron Teo is, of course, now in the Wicked movies.
Yes.
So he's based in the UK. And then the girl, or the playing the mother, was Safia Hanifa, who's unfortunately retired from the industry. So so those were our local actors at that time. And the show did very, very well, even with the local productions. And I would very much like to bring back local actors to do the shows. One of the, I think, biggest impediments for our industry in Malaysia is that many of our very, very good performers have to unfortunately go abroad to earn a living.
Yes. Yeah.
And the ones who are around usually are so busy with multiple projects. It's very hard to get them to, find the time available to commit to your project. So the lack of available good actors is always a problem we face. Yeah.
I hope that through this podcast, maybe you'll get some younger
Yes,
performing
I hope
artists
so.
who are interested to collaborate to be part of,
Yeah.
your future productions.
Yes.
So Stuck sounds like a very metaphorical take on, I'm guessing, some of the emotional challenges that children face.
Yes.
Would you agree with that, Chae?
Yes, yeah. I think that's partly why it has become very popular with when kids watch it, they really love it, because it the kid is basically them.
Yeah.
Right. And so they, in their own little lives, also face dilemmas. What do you do when this happens or that happens, or you're trying to get out of a problem, right? And they also have to think of solutions. And sometimes maybe your solution actually ends up making things worse. So those are that's the sort of, I guess, existentialist questions we ask ourselves, even if you're 3 years old.
Very
And
nice.
I think what I like about these productions is that they take these concerns of the children seriously. They're not dismissed. They're not being told, that's not important, or you don't have to think about that. They do think about it, and we should respect that they do worry about things. So that that's why this show, I like to bring it back, because it's really very, very popular with the parents as well, and the teachers. Yeah.
When is this show taking place, Chae, and how can people actually purchase the tickets to buy?
Okay, so
to watch the show?
the show runs from May 3rd to 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah, but basically for the members of the public, the shows are on Sundays. The weekday shows, Monday through Friday, are primarily aimed at schools, mainly international and private schools. So if you are a teacher with an international or private school, please reach out to us. The best is to go to our website, tix.my, tix.my, and all the details about how to buy tickets for the Sunday shows, as well as how to order tickets for your school on weekdays, are all there.
Wonderful. We will also add the links in the description of the podcast as well.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think we have come to the tail end of our podcast interview, Lian. I think this is one question that I'm guessing a lot of some of our listeners who are also professionals, and they are mostly, I'm pretty sure they're very curious as well. Like, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned, running Gardner and Wife Theatre for over 20 years now? And what's your tip or advice to some of our friends out there who, aspire to follow the same path as you?
Take your time. Don't rush. It's very easy to feel that, if I don't do this now, it's the end of the world. And actually it isn't. If you need time to prepare the production, to do it. Take that time. Don't feel you need to rush and do one show after another, because what will happen is that you'll burn out. So if you really want to have a career, you need to take your time, and don't feel that you need to cram everything into a short period of time, because you'll end up just burning out, and the quality of the work will suffer. So I find that a lot, especially young people, one of the things young people have is a tremendous enthusiasm, which is great, but very often they don't have the wisdom, and so they don't realize, actually, you have 20 years, to do this. You don't need to rush to do it now. Also take your time to learn from other people. One of the things I notice increasingly among young people nowadays is that they like to set up their own company before they've had the chance to really explore the other players in the industry. So they never get a chance to really work for X, Y, and Z but they already want to start up their own thing. And so I think you end up sort of you lose on learning from other people, because you're busy trying to do your own thing and setting your, what do you call it, putting out your own fires, but you don't get a chance to really learn from the mistakes of other people, and I think you learn more from mistakes than you do from successes. So
It's
yeah,
really
so
good
take your
advice.
time. Yeah.
Take your time. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Lian. This has been such a wonderful, wonderful interview.
Oh, this has
I
been a
wish
great
you-
conversation. Thank you.
I wish you all the best with Stuck. And again, to all of our listeners who are curious, who want to, go and watch the show, the link is in the description of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.